So I will add a new component here. Let's add a new component here. So how do we add a new component? I'm generating a new component here. How to create a new component? Ng generate component. And the component name, I'm configuring the component name. Ng generate component, and the component name is home. And I will use here -- skip test equal to true. I don't want any test file to be generated. Then I will use skip test equal to true. I am creating a simple component by name home. I'm generating a component by name home. Okay. So this is the home component we are having. Technically, once the component is generated, let's keep this component in the startup. Keep that component in the startup. You know how we can keep the component in the startup? You know the approach. How do we keep the component in the startup, right? So how do we keep the component in the startup? So we need to go to app module, right? In the app module, in the app module.ts, let's define this component in the startup. In the app module.ts, I'm defining this component in the startup. So here we have to import the component in ng module. In the ng module declarations, I'm adding the component. Already the component is added because we added through scaffold techniques, right? So this component is already added, right? So once the component is added, keep this component in the startup. So that means configure this into the index page. Already you know, that means bootstrap. I will bootstrap with the home component. And you know the selector for home component will be app home. So you need to go to the index HTML page. In the index HTML page, so here I will keep app home. That is the selector for our home component. So app home, that is the selector for our home component. So we just added a sample component called home, and we made this component in the startup. So we configured and made this component available in the startup. Okay. Now, once this component is in the startup, configure that component in the startup, right? So once we configure and define the component in the startup, now let's start this component. So already, how do we start our application? So I am starting the application. So let's start the application. So ng serve -open, right? So we are opening our application. We are starting our application. So ng serve open. So once the application started, so you can see the browser, so the output, and you can see the home works. So currently the home component is in the startup. Remember, I created a simple application. And in that application, a component called home, and I kept this component in the startup. So what you have to do is create a new component and ng generate component. The component name is home, skip test equal to true, and keep it in the startup. That means so start with the home component. Start with home component. Home component we have to start with, and we need to keep this in the bootstrap. So that means let's go, and in the bootstrap we need to define that. Okay, So in the Bootstrap, we need to define, that means app.module.ts. All these you know, because you are all Angular people, you know how to keep it in the startup. How do we start with application, right? I don't need to much explain about all this. Then go to index.html, and in the body section, you need to define app home, right? So that it will start with that app home. That is what I have done till now. Okay. Now important is once you have done this. So first I am showing you. So without materials and with materials, what difference can happen? How you can manage everything. So without materials and with materials, how you can manage everything. That is the first approach we are going to see here. So let's take a look here. So first point is currently in this home component. So go to home component HTML page. So we have home component HTML. In home component HTML, I just added a heading. I just added a heading. So home component. Okay. And here I defined a button. So this button is just like some submit button. And I want to configure this. I want to configure this in a div. I'm adding this in a div. Okay, in a div, we are defining this. Fine. Currently, it's normal. You can see once I save this in the output, it shows normal. I want to keep this more effective, interactive. I want to keep this more effective and interactive. Then you can use Bootstrap. You can use Bootstrap. By using Bootstrap, you can configure this, right? You can use Bootstrap for configuring this. So first step, so this is what we have done. So that means we created a home component, and in the home component, so we go to this, go to home component, home.component.html. In this HTML file, I added some design like this. I want to make it more interactive, effective, with less CSS manually written. Then all these days, so you may be working with the Bootstrap. Generally, how we can Bootstrap set up CSS, Bootstrap CSS for Angular application. So I will show you how we can set up Bootstrap CSS for Angular application. How to set up Bootstrap for Bootstrap CSS for Angular application. First step, what we need to do is install Bootstrap in your project. You have to install Bootstrap. npm install Bootstrap. This is the command you have to run in your project. So we have to install Bootstrap in our project. npm install Bootstrap. So that is what we need to configure. So let's go to the terminal. So in the terminal, we are installing Bootstrap, right? So we have to install Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap. So how we can install Bootstrap? npm install Bootstrap. npm install Bootstrap. This is the command we need to execute to install Bootstrap for our project. Okay. So it will download and install Bootstrap for our project. And where the library of Bootstrap will be stored? I hope everyone know about it. Where the library of Bootstrap will be stored, can you tell? Where the library of Bootstrap will be stored? Yes, good. So the Bootstrap library will be in node modules. Am I right? It will be in node modules. So Bootstrap library will be available in the node modules, right? That's it. Yeah. So here you can see Bootstrap. Yeah, Bootstrap successfully installed. Bootstrap successfully installed in my project. and the latest version I have, this is 4.5. Once